At first glance, Jordan Peele's Get Out presents itself as a psychological thriller with all the classic tropes, an eerie score, unsettling silence, and a protagonist entering unfamiliar territory. But from the opening scene of a black man being abducted in a quiet, upper-middle-class suburban neighborhood, the film announces its deeper intentions. This isn't just about fear in the traditional horror sense, it's about the kind of fear that's ingrained in the Black American experience. The fear of simply existing in spaces that aren't meant for you. Peele masterfully crafts a narrative that operates on two levels. On the surface, it's a suspenseful story about a man visiting his girlfriend's parents. Underneath, it's a scathing critique of liberal racism, cultural appropriation, and the commodification of black bodies. This dual-layered storytelling is what sets Get Out apart from traditional horror. It forces the audience, particularly white viewers, to question their assumptions and to confront uncomfortable truths. The film establishes an eerie tone. The suburb, with its manicured lawns and smiling neighbors, is a modern-day haunted house. The real monsters aren't ghosts or vampires, but well-meaning white liberals who mask their racism under a veneer of progressivism. This inversion of the typical horror setting is Peele's first subversive move. He takes what should be safe and familiar and turns it into a landscape of terror. The abduction of Andre Hayworth in the opening scene sets the thematic tone of the film. Andre is a black man in a predominantly white space, and his discomfort is palpable. The abduction isn't random, it's symbolic of the predatory nature of the Armitage family's intentions, and a metaphor for how black people are often consumed by white society, used for their talents, their culture, and their physicality, while being stripped of their autonomy. By the time the title screen hits, the viewer is already unsettled, and that's exactly the point. Peele isn't interested in cheap scares. He wants to disturb you, to provoke thought, to awaken you to a different kind of horror, one that walks among us smiling and self-congratulatory. Chris Washington is the emotional center of Get Out, played by Daniel Kaluuya. Chris's quiet, observant, and reserved traits often required for survival in a world that frequently perceives black men as threats. As the film's protagonist, Chris represents a kind of everyman, relatable and grounded, yet his experiences are steeped in a racialized reality. When Rose invites Chris to meet her family, his hesitation is immediate and understandable. "Do they know I'm black?" he asks. It's a simple question that carries centuries of weight. It reflects the anxiety many people of color feel when entering predominantly white spaces, where they are often hyper-visible, yet simultaneously invisible. Peele uses this moment to signal to the audience that this isn't just about meeting the parents, it's about navigating racial minefields. Upon arrival at the Armitage estate, Chris is met with an overcompensating hospitality. Dean Armitage's comments about voting for Obama and Missy's insistence on hypnosis are laced with microaggressions and paternalism. These interactions are not overtly hostile, but they are laden with the quiet violence, the kind that invalidates identity while pretending to celebrate it. This is the insidious face of modern racism, smiling, self-congratulatory, and utterly unaware of its own toxicity. As the weekend progresses, Chris becomes increasingly uneasy. The black housekeeper and groundskeeper behave oddly, their speech and mannerisms stiff and out of place. The white guests at the Armitage garden party make disturbing comments about Chris's physique, his genetic makeup, and even his potential sexual prowess. These aren't just awkward moments, they are examples of the fetishization of blackness, of how black bodies are viewed as exotic, powerful, and desirable, yet never truly human. Through Chris, Peele explores the psychological toll of being perpetually othered. His silence is not passivity, but a form of armor. He listens, observes, and endures because he has to. And as the narrative unfolds, it becomes clear that Chris isn't just fighting for survival in a horror film, he's battling the emotional and psychological ghosts of generational trauma. The Sunken Place is one of Get Out's most powerful and enduring symbols. When Missy hypnotizes Chris and sends him into this dark void, the imagery is both haunting and deeply metaphorical. Chris falls backward into darkness, watching the world slip away as if through a screen. He can see but cannot speak, scream, or move. He is a passenger in his own body. This metaphor resonates profoundly with the experience of systemic oppression. The Sunken Place represents the feeling of being silenced, marginalized, and rendered invisible by dominant cultural narratives. It's the space where black voices are ignored, where autonomy is stripped away, and where one's identity is co-opted for someone else's use. Peele has described the Sunken Place as a reflection of the societal condition where black people are pushed to the margins, excluded from decision-making, and denied agency. It's not just a horror trope, it's a lived reality for many. From political disenfranchisement to media misrepresentation, the Sunken Place is where the world watches black pain without acknowledging it, and where cries for justice echo unheard. Chris's experience in the Sunken Place is particularly devastating because it echoes his childhood trauma. Having lost his mother and feeling powerless to help her, he now relives that helplessness in a new, more sinister form. The trauma is compounded not only by the hypnosis, but by the realization that he has been tricked, manipulated, and betrayed by someone he trusted. The power of the Sunken Place lies in its simplicity. It is a void, a space without light, without voice, without power, and in portraying it so vividly, Peele gives form to an abstract but pervasive experience. He forces the audience to feel, if only briefly, what it's like to be silenced by a society that claims to care. The Coagula procedure is the film's most grotesque revelation. Through this twisted medical process, the Armitage family transfers the consciousness of aging white individuals into young black bodies, its body snatching under the guise of admiration. They want what black people have: their strength, their aesthetics, their vitality, but not who they are. This isn't just mad science for horror's sake, it's a searing metaphor for cultural appropriation. In the Armitage family's eyes, blackness is a commodity, a resource to be extracted and exploited. They don't hate black people, in fact, they claim to admire them. But it's precisely this objectifying admiration that makes their actions so chilling. They strip away individuality and humanity in order to consume an idealized version of blackness. Peele uses the Coagula to expose how mainstream culture often elevates black art, fashion, music, and athleticism, while ignoring or suppressing the voices behind them.
We're going to create a new banner. This is a Jump Doc alert. NBA superstar LeBron James is talking politics again.
I know you guys are excited to see her. I didn't know you guys would be excited to see me too, but thank you. As much as you guys will love to hear from me, I would much rather love to hear from our next president, Miss Hillary Clinton.
Now a historic moment. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Donald Trump wins the presidency.
And this time it's R-rated. Here's his barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical take on President Trump in a new ESPN podcast.
The number one job in America, the point of person, is someone who doesn't understand the people and really don't give a about the people.
But wait, there's more gripping insight. ESPN host Carrie Champion asked James and fellow NBA star Kevin Durant about what she described as Trump's racist comments.
I feel like our team as a country is not ran by a great coach.
It's not even a surprise when he says something. It's not even a surprise. It's like laughable. It's like
it's laughable.
It's laughable and it's scary.
But it's also scary because I shouldn't be numb to your racist comments.
Right.
I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
I'm numb to this commentary. Like, must they run their mouths like that? Unfortunately, a lot of kids and some adults take these ignorant comments seriously. Look, there might be a cautionary lesson in LeBron for kids. This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early to join the NBA. And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
It's the reason why black culture is omnipresent in pop culture, yet black creators often struggle for recognition and ownership. The Armitages don't want Chris's mind or soul, just his body. The symbolism goes deeper. The surgical nature of the Coagula mirrors real-world histories of medical exploitation, from the Tuskegee experiments to forced sterilizations. The horror here is not just psychological but historical. It's the legacy of black bodies being treated as property, as tools, as experiments. And yet, what makes the Coagula even more terrifying is how mundane it is. The Armitages perform it with clinical detachment, as though it's a routine procedure. This normalcy is the point. Racism isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it's institutional, procedural, and polite, and that's what makes it so dangerous. Rose Armitage, played by Allison Williams, is perhaps one of the most unsettling characters in Get Out. Her transformation from loving girlfriend to a cold conspirator is both shocking and disturbingly plausible. Initially, Rose appears to be the ally archetype, defensive of Chris, apologetic for her family's awkwardness, and seemingly unaware of the more insidious racism around her. But this too is a facade. Peele uses Rose to explore the dangers of performative allyship and the seductive camouflage of white femininity. One of the most chilling aspects of Rose's character is how seamlessly she switches roles. When Chris begins to suspect something is wrong and tries to leave, her demeanor changes from supportive to icy in seconds. Her voice flattens, her expressions harden, and suddenly the mask is gone. This cold shift isn't just frightening, it's symbolic. It reveals how some individuals can play the role of an ally until that role no longer benefits them. Rose's role as the lure is key to the Armitage family operation. She dates black men, gains their trust, and brings them home to be auctioned off like cattle. This echoes the history of manipulation and betrayal that black communities have faced for centuries. The horror isn't just that Rose is evil, it's that she's effective because she hides behind love and liberal values. Peele uses her character to warn viewers not to take performative wokeness at face value. Rose doesn't use racial slurs or overt violence. Instead, she weaponizes love, trust, and liberal posturing to entrap her victims. Her iTunes playlist and casual comfort around black culture add to the illusion, but her motives are rooted in entitlement and control. When Chris finally sees the photos of Rose's past victims, it's a devastating moment not just because of her betrayal, but because it underscores how premeditated her actions were. The ease with which she deceives Chris and others speaks to how deeply racism can be embedded in structures masked as affection or progressivism. Rose is not a monster from a distant land, she's the girl next door, and that's what makes her terrifying. The garden party scene in Get Out culminates in one of the most disturbing sequences in the film, the silent auction. While Chris is off with Rose, believing he's making a romantic escape, the Armitage family hosts a secret gathering to bid on his body. This moment is rich with historical resonance, evoking the legacy of slave auctions where black bodies were commodified, priced, and sold. The silence of the auction is perhaps its most haunting element. There's no fast-talking auctioneer, no chaos, just quiet, composed gestures. This restraint mirrors the modern, insidious nature of racism the film critiques. It's not brash or loud, it's calculated, clinical, and horrifying in its calm. What's more, the white attendees don't just want Chris's body, they want to be in his body. The fetishization of blackness reaches a new level here, where admiration turns into possession. The auction scene lays bare the disturbing truth that appreciation of black culture often morphs into a desire to control and dominate it. This scene also reframes earlier interactions at the party. When the guests complimented Chris's physique or asked Rose about his performance, they weren't just awkward or tone deaf, they were assessing him as merchandise. Every handshake, every question was a veiled inspection. It's a reminder that beneath surface level politeness often lies something more sinister. By placing this modern auction in a serene garden setting, Peele juxtaposes civility with savagery. The setting is picturesque, the people are well dressed, and the process is disturbingly quiet, but the implications are monstrous. This is the face of racism in the 21st century, smiling, subtle, and deeply ingrained. Rod Williams, played by Lil Rel Howery, is more than just comic relief in Get Out. He's the friend who sees things for what they are and refuses to be gaslit. From the start, Rod is skeptical of Chris's trip to meet Rose's family. He jokes about sex slavery and organ trafficking, but as it turns out, he's frighteningly close to the truth. Rod serves as a foil to the more subdued Chris. While Chris internalizes his discomfort and tries to make sense of the situation quietly, Rod speaks his mind loudly and unapologetically. He doesn't try to make white people comfortable, and he doesn't downplay his suspicions. In a film filled with subtle microaggressions and psychological tension, Rod is refreshingly direct. More importantly, Rod represents the value of intuition and community knowledge. While society often dismisses the warnings and gut feelings of black individuals, Rod's instincts prove correct. He follows his suspicions, does his own research, and ultimately saves Chris. His heroism isn't born of physical strength or combat, it comes from loyalty, intelligence, and persistence. Rod's role also subverts horror movie tropes. Traditionally, black characters are sidelined or killed early in horror films, but in Get Out, a black man is not only the protagonist but is also rescued by another black man. Rod's triumphant arrival in the TSA car is a cathartic, victorious moment that flips the genre on its head. By the end, Rod isn't just a friend, he's a symbol of survival and support. In a world where Chris was almost consumed by white liberalism disguised as love, it was Rod's unfiltered, unapologetic truth-telling that brought him back. He's the embodiment of the phrase, listen to your people, because sometimes they're the only ones looking out for you. When Get Out premiered in 2017, it was more than a cinematic event, it was a cultural earthquake. Jordan Peele, known primarily for his work in comedy, shattered expectations by delivering one of the most incisive, genre-defying horror films in decades. It didn't just scare audiences, it made them think, and more importantly, it made them see. The film tapped into a zeitgeist of racial reckoning that was gaining momentum in America. Released during the early years of the Trump administration and in the midst of movements like Black Lives Matter, Get Out gave voice to fears and frustrations that had long been simmering. It articulated the kind of racism that's hard to explain, but easy to recognize once exposed, the smiling kind, the liberal kind, the kind that claims to be colorblind while perpetuating inequality. Critics hailed Get Out as a masterpiece not just because of its tight narrative and brilliant performances, but because it used the horror genre to explore truths that other genres often shy away from. It made microaggressions horrifying, it made appropriation monstrous, and it made the viewer complicit, forcing them to ask hard questions about their own biases. The cultural impact of Get Out was immediate. The term sunken place entered the lexicon as a way to describe silencing and marginalization. The film sparked conversations about interracial relationships, performative allyship, and the commodification of blackness. It was taught in classrooms, dissected in think pieces, and discussed on every major media platform. But perhaps the most powerful legacy of Get Out is that it made people pay attention. Jordan Peele opened a door for black creators to tell stories that blend genre with social commentary, and in doing so he proved that horror isn't just about monsters and murder, it's about truth. Uncomfortable, undeniable, and unforgettable truth. Get Out ends not with a whimper but with a roar of triumph. Chris escapes, he survives, and he does so not by conforming to the expectations of white society, but by rejecting them entirely. He kills the Armitages, resists the Coagula, and claws his way back from the sunken place literally and metaphorically. This victory is rare in horror films, especially for black protagonists, but it's also symbolic. Chris's escape represents a broader struggle, the fight to reclaim agency, identity, and humanity in a world that constantly tries to strip them away. His survival is more than physical, it's psychological, emotional, and cultural. The final image of Chris and Rod driving away into the night is cathartic. It's a reversal of so many horror tropes and a declaration of narrative independence. Chris doesn't just escape the house, he escapes the entire framework that sought to dehumanize him. And in doing so, he reclaims his story. Peele doesn't offer a neat resolution. There are still questions, still scars, still traumas, but there is also hope. The hope that awareness leads to change, that survival leads to strength, and that truth, once revealed, cannot be ignored. Get Out isn't just a film, it's a statement, a mirror, a scream. It forces its viewers to confront what lies beneath the surface of polite society, and in doing so, it dares us all to wake up.
Shit! Chris! How you find me? I'm TS motherfucking A. We handle shit. That's what we do. Consider this situation fucking handle.